Well, hey, welcome to another episode of the Real Life Guys. I'm Barry Lawrence. This is Sandy Marks. And today we have with us a great guest, Mitch Lassiter from CCKF, a trail we fish in. And man, we're glad you're here today.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so we just want to spend some time with you to learn a little bit about you and a little bit about the trail. And then, let's just start off with,
Okay.
who is Mitch Lassiter? Tell us about your family, what you enjoy, kind of some hobbies maybe.
Okay. So I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, North Carolina. Have been a Carolina boy all my life. Have basically lived in this area my entire life. I went to a boarding school in Lynchburg, Virginia for 2 years, and then I went to college in Charlotte at UNC Charlotte. I bounced around a little bit with college. I went to ECU straight out of high school. Didn't take very long to decide that wasn't for me. I came back, took some classes through Campbell, transferred to UNC, and then I really realized that wasn't where I wanted to be. And it was too late to get into state, so I went to Charlotte and found a home at Charlotte and enjoyed my time there. Met my wife, Beth, in the Sanford Walmart, of all places. I had been working there a little while. She came in for her training. It was the first day, as an employee. So she came into the meeting room for training, and I saw her walk through the store, and I basically walked back and forth past the training room to look through that little window in the door the rest of my shift, and took me 9 or 10 times of asking her out to finally convince her to go with me.
I think that's called stalking, isn't it?
Pretty much. I think today it would be stalking. The funny thing, when she finally said yes, that she'd go out with me, the first thing she said, yeah, I'll go out with you, but you've got to go to church with me first. And so I did. And here we are almost 30 years of marriage later. And she hates it when I say this, but I joke with everybody. I say, that's the only thing I ever got at Walmart I can't take back. And, we have 2 children. We have Sam and Abby. Sam is 27 now, fishes with us from time to time, mostly in the Wildcats. And my daughter Abby is 20 and literally just paid her application fee for NC State today. And we've set up a time to go tour there. She wants to be a school teacher. Sam is a correctional officer in the North Carolina Department of Corrections. I wish he would do something else, but he's done pretty well there. He's a sergeant at a fairly young age. I went to school. My schooling was actually to be a school teacher. I went to UNC Charlotte for early childhood education and realized before I even graduated, I did not have the creativity or the patience to keep a room full of kindergartners busy for a day. But I have found in my career, though, as I moved into management, that what I learned about childhood development comes in handy when you're managing people. So
you and I got a few things in common, Mitch. We sort of bounced around in college a little bit. Both had desires at one point to be a school teacher sort of deal, and realized that was not the trail for us. And I was trying to think today, the first time I think you and I met, I think we sort of met on Facebook page talking about kayak fishing. And I remember I was trying to get some advice on how to mount a fish finder, and you actually said, hey, I'll just come do it for you. And even put the fish finder on my first fishing kayak.
That was a Big Fish 105, I think.
That was a Big Fish 105.
There was.
Yeah. And
I remember that.
One of my favorite kayaks, but that was just great of you just to jump in and say, hey, I'll come do that for you. I don't even think I bought you lunch or anything for that.
You snuck some money into my tool bag when I went.
Oh, okay. Well,
I kept telling you I wasn't taking any money or anything, and I hit you up about it after, and you said, well, that'll just buy you lunch one day. So
come to find out, I think from later conversation, you sort of connected with my brother at one time.
Yep. I worked with him in a company here in Sanford. So
awesome. Well, Mitch, we want to sort of transition a little bit about fishing. Maybe what's your favorite childhood memory of fishing? You know, most people I find that fish a lot have a memory that sort of sticks out in their mind, their earliest memory of fishing, or there's something that developed their love of fishing. So what would that be for you?
Probably the most. And growing up in Pittsburgh, my father was a businessman. I was born very late in my parents' life, and he had to concentrate on his business a lot. And we had a vacation home down on Topsail Island, and we would go down there and we would fish off the pier and fish in the surf, But he wasn't much of an outdoorsman. Born in the Depression, very practical, work. So we had a gentleman that lived down the road, and I called him Uncle Milton, Milton Seymour. He was heavily involved with, never went to college, but heavily involved with UNC baseball. He was a security guard at every single home game that they ever had while he was an adult, I think. Everybody over there knew him, but he took the time to take me fishing just on the side of the pond with a cane pole catching brim. And my parents always laughed and said he never got a chance to fish because he would bait my hook, and by the time I would set it in the water, I was pulling out a brim, and he would just hand me the other pole, and we would just do that all day. But that wasn't a one-time thing. He took time to invest in a kid.
Right.
And that influenced me a lot. And as an adult, it still influences me. That's just kind of a responsibility. I think more so now than when we were growing up. There's a lot more broken homes. There's a lot more kids that kind of need mentors. And so that really influenced me as an adult, that if I get that opportunity, take it. If you get a chance to take a kid fishing, take him fishing. If you get a chance to take a kid hunting, take him hunting. But invest in these kids, that either have absent fathers or, fathers that just don't have enough time to do things with them. And I realize now, as I'm an adult, it didn't really matter to him if he caught any fish or not. So
Yeah,
it's amazing when you when you're intentional about making that investment in somebody. You never know what they're going through or what their struggle might be, but sometimes just getting away in nature, spending some time goofing off makes all the difference.
Absolutely. And it doesn't always have to be a kid. I enjoy. I served as the president of the Lee County Wildlife Club for a while, and one of my passions was just someone that didn't. I suffer from an affliction called adult onset hunting, and it's terrible. It costs a lot of money, and but I didn't do these things as a kid, and so I came to it as an adult, and so any opportunity we had at the Wildlife Club to bring in people, educational wise, and bring in people from the community that maybe have not been out in the outdoors, and show them, we don't just go to this club and kill animals. Like, it's about conservation, it's about safety, and to introduce anybody to the outdoors, whether it's fishing or hunting. I really enjoyed it. So
that's great. That's awesome. That's a great investment in people's lives, Mitch, that you've made through the years. As we think about, fishing now, you're one of those icons, that I look up to in North Carolina for fishing. What would you say is your favorite place to fish? Do you have a favorite lure that you like to use? What's your preference?
Especially the lure, because we need to know what's working.
Well, I think you guys are very, very familiar with my lure of choice these days. My confidence bait up until a few years ago was always a spinnerbait. And I would track down the old Man's Classic, the Man's Hank Parker Classic spinnerbaits. And then when we brought a professional fisherman in to speak to us at the Wildlife Club, he was very much a spinnerbait man. And he told me, he said, well, when Hank Parker won, he didn't use Man's spinnerbaits. He won using hog collar spinnerbaits. And as soon as he won, Man's came along and offered him an endorsement. And so he took his spinnerbait design to Man's and developed it. So now you can't really find the Man's, but I have the model numbers of the two spinnerbaits that he threw when he won his classic. And and I'll still buy those direct from Hog Collar. But now, if you ask any of the guys that I fished with a lot of them call me Captain Cinco. And I've stick baits. I've actually switched from the Cincos to the Berkeley Max Scent Generals. I believe in that. I believe in that Max Scent, and I've always fished a lot of the power bait plastics anyway. So, but yeah, stick baits and spinner baits. I kind of like, which is odd because a spinner bait is very much an active power fishing type bait, and a Cinco is just throw it out there and let it sink and eat a cracker and wait and see if anything bites it and then roll it in and do it again, you know. So,
Yeah,
but I've had success with both. So
I'm pretty much a wacky rig. They could call me like wacky or something. That's what I throw. It seems to be the only thing I can catch him on here recently.
I have not caught a bass this year. So I don't, you can just call me Captain Skunk at this point, I believe. So
Do you have a favorite body of water, Mitch, you like to fish?
So growing up right here, you know, right now I live 15 minutes from one of the ramps at Jordan. So I go there very often. I'm very comfortable on Jordan. I'm a lot more comfortable with Jordan than I am with Harris. It's amazing to me that they fish so differently, only being 15 minutes apart. But since we've started that kayak fishing, I got introduced to Lake McIntosh up in Burlington. And I have to say that the quality of fish that I have caught on McIntosh has been much better. My personal best has still come out of Jordan, but I've caught in general better quality fish out of McIntosh. I fished it, 2 or 3 years now, and I really, really like that body of water. So
awesome.
I think I remember this right. Tell me if I'm wrong, but prior to CCKF, you had fished some bass boat trails and those type things. Didn't you also organize some golf tournament stuff?
I did. We so that's one reason I didn't want to start CCKF, because I was my family have always been avid golfers from Moore County. As I said, I was born late in my parents' life. My father used to play Pinehurst number 2 for $2 green fee. And it was before they even had grass on the greens. They had sand greens, and you put it on the sand and then had to rake the sand like you did a sand trap. Ponderosa, by the way, used to be the exact same thing before they got grass on their greens. So yeah, we started an amateur golf tour, which was really a glorified golf league. It was based on the same principles like a work golf league would be, except it was open to the public. And one of the golf publications actually used the term the fastest growing golf tournament trail in North Carolina. It was all handicapped. So it wasn't just who went out and shot the best score, it was who played the best against themselves. And we had put some things in place about trying to protect ourselves on the handicaps and keep people from sandbagging. And so the first 2 years we did that, I was able to play and compete. And we've grown to the point where people started bickering about the rules and pointing the fingers at each other. And it turned into a job where I had to ride around on a golf cart, and manage everything during the day. And I didn't get to play. And I've not, since we stopped that, I have not picked up a golf club. It ruined the game of golf for me. So when I went into CCKF, I said, this is going to be fun. Maybe it ends up being a little more relaxed than some of the other trails, as a result. But I'm not going to make this a job. I'm not going to ruin fishing for myself by doing this. And I had kind of hoped, I had fished some of the CKA events, and I had kind of hoped that somebody would come along and start a trail. And my son kept saying, you should start a trail. And I was like, no, let's wait for somebody else to do it. And after about 3 years, I said, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So let's put a couple tournaments together and see what happens.
Oh, Mitch, there may be somebody that comes across this that's not familiar with the CCKF. So share with us sort of your vision, sort of where it is now, and anything you'd like to share about the trail.
Sure. So of course it's Central Carolina Kayak Fishing, and we just shorten it to CCKF because you have to have a little logo and letters these days. It was started, like I said, to be a little more casual of a tour. We have lower tournament fees. We are based in the Raleigh-Durham area mostly. We do branch out, and we've gone to Carr Lake. This year we're going to W. Carr Scott in North Wilkesboro, and we're going to Baden Lake and Lake McIntosh. But Harris, Jordan, and Falls are our core lakes. We basically fish all of those twice. But like I said, we've got lower entry fees. I started it with the intent, almost the same as I was speaking of the Wildlife Club, of maybe there's some guys out there that haven't fished in a tournament environment. So this is a great introduction to tournament fishing. But even though we started it as a little more relaxed, it's turned out to be just as competitive as the other trails. It just seems, though, that the culture of kayak fishing is more friendly than, let's say, even the culture of golf tournaments, or definitely a lot more friendly than bass boat tournament fishing. And not to say that those aren't nice people. They're really, really focused on winning, and these are the rules. The thing I love about the kayak community is typically you'll ask somebody, you see them post their fish, they'll pretty much tell you where they were or what bait they were throwing. And it doesn't help me at all when they do it, because I can't move the bait the same way they do, or I'm not throwing it, in exactly the right spot. I've never figured out deep water fishing at all. So I struggle at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, and then during the spawn and the fall, I can catch a few fish. But yeah, we're just definitely looking to be a family friendly, beginner friendly, veteran friendly. I mean, we're looking to be kind of an all-inclusive trail where everybody can kind of find a spot. There's a lot of camaraderie we have a Facebook group, and it just turns out, that there's lots of advice offered on the Facebook group. Guys have come to know each other. They end up getting together and fishing on off weekends together, pre-fishing together, camping. You'll see, hey, we're going to this North Wilkesboro tournament, and guys will start booking campsites around each other so they can, go up and pre-fish and spend a couple days. And it's actually been the exact opposite of the experience I had with the golf tour. So
I think that's what was appealing to us too. When we were out here just outside this window putting that fish finder on that day, and you were explaining a vision that fall for the trail, and I think that fall we met maybe 2 or 3 times and had good turnouts, and we were learning. We were definitely newbies to kayaks. It looked like fishing too, and a lot of things, but we were learning. But the guys were so helpful at the ramps, and help even knowing how to get to the water, all those things. It was just a really great atmosphere, and continues to be. And I think last year when we were at Randleman, when we had so many guys show up, and but everybody was just great, because it would have been a situation where you could get frustrated, but everybody's like, we'll just wait. You guys want to get in next? So that really speaks volumes about the attitudes of those guys who are involved. And so it was other than that's the tournament where I almost caught a limit. And the last fish come in, and I had him on the measuring board. I took my gloves off. I turned to get my phone, and he decided it was time to get back in the water. And
doesn't that seem to be that? I think that's an aspect of kayak fishing that bass boat anglers don't really have to deal with. But keeping that fish on the board and getting a photo of him without him jumping off sometimes is the hardest thing in the world to do. And but I'm glad you pointed that out about Randleman. We overloaded that lake. We had no idea. It was our second tournament of our first full year, and 78 kayaks showed up to a boat ramp that had one ramp. Well, actually, I think 70 showed up to that ramp, and 8 guys went to the other side of the lake and waited for the other ramp to open. But it's exactly what you said. I was proud at the end of the day. Had that been a bass boat tournament, had that just been a Saturday at any given boat ramp, there would have been tempers flaring and arguments, and everyone was just as gracious as they could be, and there were no incidents. And I made a promise that we would never do that again. I mean, I like Lake Randleman, but we will never have that situation again.
Yeah, my memory there, Mitch, is while Barry was catching his limit almost, I didn't catch a fish all day. In fact, there was one point where we were back in this little cove. I'd fished my way through it, come up, had actually gotten a drink out of the cooler and was eating a sandwich, and the guy comes right behind me. I mean, right behind me, and catches the fish that becomes the big fish of the tournament. He got it. I had thrown in that same spot not even 5 minutes earlier. And then he drags a hog out of that same spot. So I was like,
it's something I can't figure out. I went into the last tournament of the year in the top 10 in the point standings. And we went to Harris, and I have this love-hate relationship with Sharon Harris Reservoir. And I hated a guy I went to high school with. I went to school, I was in the same class as his brother. And I believe that Shane was 1 or 2 years ahead of me. I can't remember which one. But I knew him. I mean, we know each other. And he broke the North Carolina record for the 5-fish limit 2 weekends on a row on Harris.
Wow.
If you remember, there's videos, on Facebook. And I hate it. It was bad enough for me to catch fish there then. Now we have all this added pressure. And after that got released in some magazines and Bassmaster, you started seeing license plates at Harris from Alabama. You started seeing them I'm thinking, you don't come from Alabama to North Carolina to fish. You go from North Carolina to Alabama. That's like a destination, Alabama, Florida, some of these places. So it just made it even harder for me. But I fished that tournament, did not catch a fish. And all I needed to make it into what we call our Clash of Titans or, our year-end tournament, if I'd have caught one 10-inch fish, I would have remained in the top 10. But I didn't catch a fish at all. I think I ended up finishing 13th or 14th in points because I skunked that last tournament, and I'd already used my 2 drops on getting skunked early in the year when the fish are still deep. So there might be a little reasoning that our first points tournament's in March instead of February this year.
There you go. So what are you looking forward to the most for this season? What would you say is I'm really anxious to see what happens here?
So as the trail as a whole, I think we're going to experience some growth this year. I think we're going to see a lot more legitimacy to us as a trail. CKA and Queen City have already, have already accepted us. I was very careful when I started this to reach out to those trails and say, look, I am not trying to compete with you. I'm not trying to take your anglers. I'm wanting to do something in Raleigh. And I look to coexist. If we can strengthen each other, that's the best. The Eric at CKA, Vinny at Queen City, we've all worked together very well. We sat down, we planned our schedules this year. Before any of us released our schedules, we worked together to minimize any conflicts whatsoever. All 3 of us are feeders to the North Carolina BASS qualifier for kayaks this year. So on any of the 3 trails, if you if after our tournament is September 10th, the BASS qualifier is September 18th. If you finish the September 10th tournament in the top 25 of our point standings with no drops, then you qualify to go to the BASS. Same with CKA, same with Queen City. Mm-hmm. So they'll go 75 anglers go to the BASS qualifier, and then the top 10% from there go to the Bassmaster Classic and fish the kayak tournament prior. Well, if you watched that kayak tournament last year, we had 2 anglers that had participated with us that finished in the money. Mark Glenday finished in the top 10. We've attracted some quality anglers. I think we're going to continue to grow a little bit this year, and I'm just excited to kind of see that growth. Last year, I think, was the proof of concept year. This year is the growth year, and then hopefully next year is, we're totally established at that point, and we've already got companies like Yak Attack. We've got some companies on a national level that are recognizing us. I've been in talks with other companies. I think I started my sponsorship talks a little late, and they said, we're already kind of saturated in your area. But North Carolina is kind of a hotbed for kayak fishing.
Yeah.
Of course, Texas is, and of course, Florida is. But if you look at, we've got 3 strong trails in North Carolina. And I was really, really shocked. And I have to temper myself as I go. Because when we started this thing that fall, and we had 3 tournaments. And I think, the first tournament, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the first tournament we had around 34 anglers. The next tournament was a little bit more. And then the third tournament, when the word had kind of gotten out, and it was at Harris in the fall, we had over I think around 50 guys show up. And I was really, really satisfied with that. And then we started last year as our first full tournament. So I said, if we have 45 to 55 anglers a tournament, we're doing well. Well, we started the year with 63, I think. Then the next tournament we had 78. We started with really, really high numbers. And of course, after talking to the other guys, all 3 trails Queen City keeps their numbers up all the time, I think. But, it's typical to see your numbers high in the spring and then taper off participation as you get into summer and kids have ball and things like that, other commitments. So I keep having to tell myself when last year I started getting disappointed with the numbers we were having at the end of the year as opposed to the first of the year. But we averaged around 55 anglers a tournament for the year as a whole. And I thought that's more than I ever expected. You need to stop being disappointed with what you have or, what you thought you should have and be satisfied with what you really have. And so, that's just kind of what I'm looking forward to, the growth and the development of the tour. As far as what we're doing as a tour, I'm really looking forward to the Raleigh Rumble. We'll go into the Raleigh Rumble, and there's 5 lakes, and you can fish one or more. You can fish any amount of those lakes you want. If you want to start on one and pick up and go to another one and fish there, you can do it however you like. But CKA has always done the Gate City Classic and some of these where you have your choice of lakes. And so I struggled with how to do that in ours because we don't have a lot of the municipal lakes like they have around Guilford County.
Right.
So pulling in a couple of the smaller lakes like Lake Raleigh, Bond Lake, and Cary. Lake Johnson's a little bit bigger than those 2. Crabtree Lake is a little bit bigger than those. And of course, Wheeler is the biggest of the 5 that we can select from. But I was looking for enough small lakes to be able to accept 50 or 60 anglers without any, and as long as we divide up, which we should naturally do, not overload any of those lakes, and then have no clue what anybody else is doing because they're on a different lake, and then have a common meeting point and coming together and see how everybody did. I just hope that everybody else gets excited about it. I'm excited about it. If it flops, it flops. But I think we're going to do well with that one. So
I think one of the neat things too about when we met that day out here is just how some of our faith overlap, just folks we knew in common churches. And one of the things we like to talk about here is just, how does your faith play into your life, into the trail, kind of your day to day. So, what does your faith in God mean to you? What does that look like?
I believe Marty said it. If it wasn't for my faith, I wouldn't be where I am today. Or I'm at least paraphrasing what Marty said. Of course, he's done it on a much more successful level, I think, than I have. If you define success by public notoriety and being in the public eye, but there's no doubt to me that God's hand has been in my life since the very beginning. I owe Him a lot more than I can ever give Him, and I fail daily, and I pick myself up and try to do it again. I try to be on a day-to-day basis. I try to be a good person. I know that that's not enough, but I just try to be a good person. If there's something I can do to help somebody, I'm going to do something to try to help somebody. I feel like there's a calling in my life, definitely from God. There's some purpose to my life. I may not ever know what that purpose is, and I can only pray that I achieve it, and that when I stand before Him.
Yeah, I think what's awesome is that we definitely realize none of us are perfect, but we're works in progress.
Absolutely, every day. I mean, I'm a failure. That's all I'm ever going to be, is a failure, and my only hope is God's grace. That's the only hope I have. Is the fact that He knows that I'm imperfect. But if you look through the history of the Bible and all the people that God used, He used broken people that society shunned, and they did the greatest things. And I'll never be listed in a book of the Bible for doing anything. Well, there's never going to be another book to the Bible. But I'll never be spoken of in churches of being, a great man. But if there's one person out there that I can touch, that I can stand before God and He says He's here because of you, I'll just have to be satisfied with that. I hope that's the case. I try to do. You're not going to get there on your works. He tells us that. But faith without works is, the opposite of what He wants, right? You should do things because of your faith. You shouldn't do things because you want to get into favor. Like, your faith drives you to do things. And I feel like that has put a passion in me to have a heart for homeless people, to have a heart for fatherless kids. My political philosophy, and you almost hate to say it, but it's based on, the Bible tells us to take care of the widows and the orphans. And if we as a church and as we as believers do that, there is no need for social assistance from the government, right? I honestly believe that if we as a church, and I'm as guilty as anybody, but if we tithe and we take that money and we're good stewards of that money, and we take that money and we give it to people that, need things from us, the homeless, the hungry, think about how much better the whole world is going to be.
Yeah.
I have a hard time. I discussed this in another podcast. I have a really hard time sharing my faith with just Joe Blow off the street. It's easy. I think it's easy for all of us. If you know somebody's a believer, to hey, now you've got something in common and you can discuss it. But to just walk up to somebody and say, hey, do you know Jesus is your personal Savior? Man, I can't think of anything harder for me, to do. And so I struggle with that. And so I try to do it through other things, through probably one of the biggest life-changing things I did was go on a mission trip to Dominican Republic. And we went down into the poorest of poor areas that I could imagine. I mean, I had never seen any place this poor. And the government doesn't care about them because there's not enough people there, to give enough votes to be important to the politicians. So they don't do anything to help them. And we would walk into these really poor people's houses, and if they had 3 eggs in a bowl, they're offering you an egg.
Wow.
And it was an offense to them if you didn't take it. And in my mind, I'm thinking, you need this egg. But in their mind, they give it to you. And they had such strong personal relationships out on the street, knew everybody's name, smiled and shook hands. And then I'm coming from here where we don't even want to know our neighbors anymore. And half the time we won't even answer the phone. And if somebody rings the doorbell, good gracious, you're turning off the TV and closing the blinds, And I thought, how we think we're so well off with all these material possessions we have, and we're actually the poor ones.
That's right.
Yeah.
Maybe I've got a brand new Samsung or a brand new iPhone, but I've replaced personal relationships with electronics, and so that has influenced me too. And so I think the one thing that I've always struggled with sharing that kind of thing, somebody wanted to antagonize me one day about the mission trip, and you shouldn't go other places. You should stay in the U.S. And I said, I agree with you. There's a lot we need to do for people in the U.S. But going on that mission trip was more about changing my life than it was about theirs.
Amen. That's right.
It changed my perspective and developed, a desire in me to, is there some way that I can help homeless in Sanford? Is there some way that I can, mentor this kid down the road, that just comes home, is a latchkey kid, comes home because his mom's working 2 jobs, because there's no dad in the picture. What can I do to help that? And like I said, I fail at it every day. I probably pass them in Walmart, every night or every time I'm there. And there's more that I could do, but it did help me develop, at least I know now kind of what I care about and what I want to work on. And I have some personal goals to be a better citizen is the way I explain it to people. I want to be, somebody said, what's your New Year's resolution? I said, I want to be a better citizen. Like, well, what do you mean by that? And I was like, I want to help the people in my community. I'm going to find a way to help the people in my community more. And that's not necessarily through CCKF, but maybe I meet people in CCKF that have the same desire or, at least would buy into that vision.
That's what I was going to say, Mitch. This fishing in general, and particularly the kayak fishing, it's just an avenue to build relationships with people. But you say it is difficult, to share our faith, with strangers and people that don't know us. They're tentative at listening. But great things about fishing, being outdoors, you can build relationships with people, and as they get to know you and see your life. And see
you share a little more,
and see.
Well, I don't know. Don't say that. I don't want anybody to look at the way I live and base anything about Christianity on me. But I can definitely point them to a couple of guys like you guys or some good pastors, and I can tell them where to find the information.
I think that was appealing to us. We're definitely not there to. We're not going to win the AOI, and we're probably not going to finish in the top 30 or 40.
I may not even catch a fish this year. I mean, that's still to be determined.
But man, what a win it is if some guy there's had a tough day, even before he got there. He said, "Man, it's been rough," and we say, "Well, we can pray for you," and suddenly things change.
And the funny thing, I mean, you guys were so involved last year, and then Cam comes along this year, and he's like, "Hey, have you ever thought about having a chaplain for the fishing tour?" And I was like, "Well, no, I haven't." And then I thought, well, it's one of those things where I was like, yeah, you're welcome to do that. But then I thought, what? I told him, I said, we've got 3 pastors that actively fish on our tour right now in our trail. And I said, I hadn't thought about that until we started talking about, being a chaplain. And I thought, man, there really is a good chance that if, like you say, if somebody's having a bad day and they just happen to vocalize it, that one of these now 4 guys might hear it, and just might offer that. I'm gonna tell you, to me, there's a really strong responsibility behind prayer, and I think it's a term. It's almost like "I love you." It's a term that gets used so much that maybe it's lost its meaning. Hey, buddy, I'm sorry to hear that you had a loss in the family. I'm going to pray for you, and I'm always afraid that there's a lot of people that say, I'm going to pray for you, and then maybe they forget because life gets hectic. And so the one thing I've always done, if I ever say, I'm going to pray for you, I have already stopped what I'm doing for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, and I've already interceded on your behalf before I even say on Facebook, I'm praying for your family. Because I take that, I've been in situations where I might not make it till tomorrow. A couple times I've been through accidents and illnesses that were extremely serious and life-threatening, and I know how much those people's prayers meant to me. And I honestly believe that I wouldn't have made it through it without those prayers. And it's a big responsibility to me when someone else needs a prayer just to stand in that gap and say, I'm praying for my brother, I'm praying for my sister. And I know I'm not perfect, and I know they're not perfect, but I know you said that where 2 of us are gathered together, And I don't think you have to be physically together sometimes for that. I think if you're on the same mindset and you're in agreement that this is something that needs prayer, I think there's some power to that. I believe in it. So.
Well, Mitch, you said it 2 or 3 times, in your sharing already. We're all broken. We all come from a point of brokenness. We all desperately need Christ, to live in and through us, and to motivate us to be those people that stand in the gap and pray for others. Man, this has been really good. I certainly appreciate your time of coming on here with us. Appreciate your leadership with the kayak fishing trail, and we look forward to. You got an event coming up like this weekend, maybe, right? Anything you want to plug before we log off?
Sure, we're having an event Saturday. It's we're calling it a warm-up event. It's a non-points event, but we've switched tournament management software this year from over to Fishing Chaos, and so we've done a free demo tournament where you can just go online and do submissions and get familiar with it. But I just said, hey, let's just have a tournament that's non-points. We'll do it towards the end of February. Hopefully we have good weather. It still looks a little iffy right now. But just get everybody familiar with the new software, and anybody that wants to come out and participate, and we'll have a few dollars on the line to make it interesting. But so that's this Saturday at Jordan Lake. Anybody is welcome to come out and join us. If you've never fished with us, it's not too late to come give us a shot. If you want to come fish with us and not even join the tournament, that's fine too. Just come meet guys and see what we're all about. And we'll be on Jordan Lake. We're going to launch at 7 a.m. You can launch from any boat launch on Jordan or any place that you can get your kayak down to the water side. And you can find our information. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and the internet, all at Central Carolina Kayak Fishing. So.
But we're monitoring the weather with you. And as 2 fair weather pastors, we may put in at noon and take out at 2. But man,
it sounds a lot like my work day. Oh, I don't know, my boss isn't watching.
And we appreciate you being on and taking the time, Mitch. So appreciate your effort with the trail and all that you do to pour into that. You're greatly appreciated. I want you to know that. And
well, it's a labor of love, so it's not even really work at this point. I appreciate you two guys and what you do outside the fishing trail. Have a deep respect for what you guys have done as your career, if we want to call it that. But you answered the call, and I deeply respect that, and I'm very, very glad that I saw that Facebook post that day that Sandy posted. And we all came to kind of know each other and form a relationship. So.
Well, we appreciate you, my friend. Appreciate your time, and we look forward to catching some big fish with you this summer.
Well, if between the 3 of us, we got a 30% chance of catching one, I guess. So.
I don't know. We got some strong guys in our trails. We
do. We have some great angles.
I've been watching the Facebook pages, and those guys are slaying them, man. It's been unreal.
They're catching basketballs. It's crazy. Yeah.
I even know what bait some of them are throwing, and they've even taken me out there and shown me how they're fishing, and I can't do it. So I'll just wait for them to get up on the bank and bite anything that gets close to them.
There you go. That's right. My kind of fishing. Well, man, we sure do appreciate it, and you have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.